Okay, I uh, have been processing these recordings and putting them on our website all along. You know that. And now I find, of course, I could have done it the easy way. Go to Conference Zoom, pick the uh, recorded events, event recordings. A tab comes up with all the recordings and the date that they were given. And you can press that and you got it. It's it's not much work on my part. I have to sit around for 2 hours while YouTube decides what to do with it. I, if it's going to be so simple that they have it right there on the backside of the Conference Zoom page, take a look for it today or tonight. If you don't find it, I'll help you through it. And anytime I get to that particular page, I'll show you as well. So what I'm saying is I'm not going to post this recording I'm making right now. It'll be automatically posted. Okay. My download box is so full of these recordings. I'm glad I bought a computer that had a lot of memory space. Okay. I got some questions over the weekend. And of course, the person that asked the question and wants an answer isn't here. That happens every single time. Oh, God. That is how to calculate your grade. Okay. I'm going to go over that with you right now. And so please pay attention. It's not hard. If you don't understand it for some reason, maybe math isn't your strong point, arithmetic, I would really call it. Well, then you can leave it up to me because I'll get it right and have your grade for you. Okay, so I'm going to have to share the screen to get to that. Okay, you see the modules again?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's not what I want to show you, but I'm going to show something right on top of it. Okay, I put this little spreadsheet together just a moment ago, uh, this morning, and please pay attention. Or if you don't want to pay attention, that's fine. Please don't ask me about it later. I can't. I have people assuming that I'll go over it one by one person. I really shouldn't have to. I have people assuming that because they take a test out of the regular time slot, that I'm going to be sitting there 24 hours a day to answer their questions when something goes wrong. That's not going to happen. Okay. I'll be there during the regular time slot and probably a lot more after. Just as an aside, I'm not bitching. You may think I am. Just like reality from both sides. It takes me over twice as many hours on any test day as any regular day, going through answering questions. Uh, please look at my question number 2. Please look at my question number 12. And that's fine. I get paid for that. I'm not worried about that. It's just that those are the heavy duty days. And so in a moment, I'm going to give you an assignment, extra credit. So you perk up there. That's going to be due a day earlier than normal because I can't have everything coming in when I've got, just like you, when I have 2 tests on Thursday, 1 test on uh, the day before, and all of the outlines cascading out of nowhere at all this time. It's just a little bit unwieldy. Okay, so if you can help yourself out, it helps me as well in figuring your grade. Okay, here's the grade scale for the class. You'll see it in the syllabus if you haven't yet. Out of 800 points, 90% or 720 is an A, 640 a B, 560, and 480 a C and a D. I don't see anybody going that low in our class, which is great. I have picked out an actual set of grades. You may recognize them as your own, but nobody else should. You didn't give your score away. You didn't give your number away. Okay. I needed a set of grades that was averaging right around 80, 90, because those are the touchy ones. There'll be people scoring so many points. There'll be people scoring 880 points, uh, or 820 at least. Do you think they're going to call me up and say, "Hey, I don't like what the grade you're going to give me"? No, not at all. No trouble there. Not too much trouble with the solid B, but the people who always, I don't know what to call trouble. Instructors sort of cringe when it happens. Someone right on the borderline, and they always ask for more credit. They always ask for additional extra credit. They want an additional assignment, something, and that's just not fair to everybody else. And I don't give those things. I go by the points. So get the points. Get the points, and there's plenty of time to do it. Here's how it works. These points, as I said, I took right off of my grade page, and you can see what they're for, and I added them up across. Okay. The total number of points is 443 that were amassed so far. The average is 88.6. You would think it's close to an A. You would think it's unfortunately in the B spot. I don't grade on averages. Average is nice to look at to get a feel for where you are, but it's not that meaningful. Too many times I've had people come up to me, or come up to me face to face and say, "I'm only 2 points away from an A." And I'll say, "What do you mean 2 points?" I said, "I have an 88. You have 88%. That's 2 points less than 90%. You're 2% low. 2% of 800 is 16 points. So I don't grade by uh, these averages. I grade by the number of points, and the scale is over here, and that's all that will count. Okay, so what can we do with that? Well, here's also the 4 columns I have for achieving an A, B, C, or D. Okay, you should do this for your own self. Get your 5 scores that you've got already. Got 3 more big ones yet to come. If you're trying for an A, let's assume this person is going to try for an A. They're very close. Why shouldn't they? They need 720 points. They already have 443, this number over here. I put it in as a minus because they don't need 720 anymore, because minus 443. Now, there are 3 areas for extra credit this week. One is the Zoom. There'll be 7 opportunities for that. Today is 1, 4 this week, and we have 3 next week, because I have that one Zoom after the lecture exam that won't last long. So you have an opportunity for 7 Zoom. I put it in here. I'm assuming this person at the last minute here is going to do everything they can to get these. If you know that you can't get that number of points, going to be gone 2 days, for instance, change it. Okay, I changed it to minus 5. 5 to be subtracted from that which is needed. But let's leave it at 7. Okay, you have a study guide that I'm going to give you today that needs to be filled out and returned to me. The method of return can just be by photograph. It could be scanned. However you want to get it back to me is
Can
fine.
everyone hear him? Charlie, I can't hear you.
I can hear him.
I was able to hear
I can
Yeah.
hear him.
I could hear him.
I can hear him.
I'm all connected up. Can you still not hear me, Randy? Can somebody else try to talk to Randy?
Randy, can you hear me? I don't think she can hear anybody.
Okay. Can somebody hit her with chat? Or did she
I
leave?
think she just left. I think it might have been her connection.
Okay.
So now we know it doesn't make a slamming noise.
Here she's back. I think. I don't know. Let's see who it was. Well, I'm glad to see it wasn't me for a change, but don't like that happening to anybody. Okay. Getting back to this. These are all negative here because you're going to subtract them from the total that you need. The total you need for an A is 720. This person has already got 443 subtracted. We assume that this person will be at all the Zoom meetings. If that's not the case, they need to change that because I will. Okay, and there's a 4-point study guide that'll be due. And I have a written exercise that'll be due as well for 4 points. Why did I throw that one in? Oh God, we got to get rid of that bell. Jeez. Okay. I threw in these last 2 exercises, the study guide and the extra credit exercise, because after adding up the number of Zoom meetings that you've had, the extra credit quiz that we had for 5 points, it doesn't come up to enough. I promised you that you would have an opportunity for 40. Okay, and so I'm 8 short. So here are the 8. I'm giving you a chance to get 8 more points right there. Okay, take advantage of it or don't. It's up to you. However, the study guide is very important, and so is the exercise to studying for the test. Okay, so if I subtract all these numbers, the real 443 and the proposed 15 points down here, and I'm left with 262. This person needs 262 points still to get an A. Where is this person going to get 262 points? Same place you are.
From the remaining 3 exams?
Exactly. I'm going to get it from the remaining 3 exams. And $262. No more extra credit. It's all been calculated in. divided by 300. The person is going to have to run 87 to 88% on the 3 exams to push across. That's a high B to get an A, okay? So, and that's the score that the person has been running so far. So you just got to keep it up and maybe go just a tiny bit harder, just a tiny bit. Now, if you work this out and you want to find out what it takes to get a B, use this column. Put in the same number of points amassed, the same amount of extra credit, but the result will be different. In this case, the person only needs 182 points to get a B in the class. This same person. That's a roughly 61% on the 3 tests each. I can't imagine a person who gets 88, 89 will drop to a 61. I don't think it's ever happened. So we really needn't go any farther for that person. If you find in doing this, and you're looking for the A, and you put the 720 in, and you put your sum in, and you think that you're going to get all 15 points, or change it if you're not, because no need of fooling yourself. If the answer down here comes out 350, well, you can't make an A. You don't have enough points available. You have 300 more points that you can gather together from the exams. Okay. This little spreadsheet sort of takes care of itself if you don't mess it up. If I send it to people, somebody will mess it up, but that's okay. There's always another copy. I'll send this spreadsheet to you later today. And if you want to give it a try and see how many points you need for an A or a B or a C, okay, you can go ahead. And it gives you and I a week to talk it over, okay, if there's anything we need to talk about. Okay. Left for us is some of the toughest material, but also maybe the most interesting material when we get to the nervous system. So I hope you enjoy it. Week 7 assignment. Okay, this time we're looking at chapter 12 and 15. These are the last 2 that you're going to do. I'm giving them to you both at once. They go hand in hand anyway, but if you want to get them out of the way before the final crunch week, there you go. Okay, these need to be outlined, and these are entire chapters. I'm not going through them with you to shorten them this time. I feel that the information that's in there will really help you understand the lecture. Lecture is a little tougher for me anyway. And okay, so that's the assignment. Now I'm going to set a due date that doesn't show here. Normally it says P4. It's not going to say P4. I want them this time, and the extra credit assignments that I'm going to show you in a moment. I'd like them both on Wednesday, which is actually L1. Okay. You need to do them before you get to L1 to have any benefit from them anyway. And like I said, I can't have all of these things coming into me on Thursday. It would be just way too much. It'd hold up your grade. And I don't want to do that. So I'm telling you way in advance if I can. So 2 chapters. Okay, we'll be talking about these starting tomorrow. There's a discussion topic about stem cell research, stem cell implementation, and your thoughts on it. We've got a couple of little stragglers, I call them. They're sort of standalone topics, and that means they don't usually take that long. This is the integumentary system, the skin and the appendages. Okay. The integumentary system, skin, yes, largest organ of the body. By far and away, the largest organ that we have. Appendages, I don't mean arms and legs. I mean hairs and nails. Some functions of the skin, well, we're born knowing some of these, I think. Protection from abrasion. Protection from infection. Protection from desiccation or drying out. The regulation of body temperature. I have as an example, sweating to cool off. Okay. Well, we can also keep ourselves warmer by directing blood flow in the skin deeper into the skin itself, away from the surface. And the production of vitamin D. They seem to be really hot on vitamin D these days. You go in for a blood test, they'll look for that, they'll look for B12. Not too much anything else, but those are the ones they really look for.
Why is that? Because I just went and they prescribed me vitamin D for that reason, I guess.
D has a lot of things going for it. Liver health, for one, the blood, the development of hemoglobin is another. Gee, I can't think of all the ones that they gave it to me for. They just said, here, take them. And God, I go, another pill? I don't even care what it's for. I just swallow it. Sorry. But vitamin D also has an effect of, well, it seems like everything does. And I don't want to spread any rumors, but I've heard it on the news programs and such that vitamin D does have the ability to ward off COVID. Not to. Then yesterday, yesterday I heard that statins actually help recover from COVID, especially for heart patients. So, you know, pretty soon, just go to the medicine cabinet, take anything it looks like. They all seem to have an effect according to the reports. I don't think enough of them have been studied long enough. But if you wait forever to study something and you got a pandemic going, you're going to lose. Okay, again, the skin is the largest organ of the body, divided into the two main regions. One region right here is the epidermis. The second, when we get to it, is the dermis, the true skin. The epidermis is your outermost layer. It's divided or subdivided also into 5 regions. The type of epithelium that it's determined to be is stratified squamous. Now, I'm assuming you don't know that word. It may not be true, but I'll assume that you don't know that word for right now. But it's going to be secondhand to you very, very quickly. So we need to put it in here. So when you reread this to study, you'll understand that term. Here are the 5 layers of the epidermis. If you touch your skin anywhere, the outermost layer is what you're touching, and that's the stratum corneum. This is the very topmost layer of the skin. Easily, as it says here, 20 to 30 layers thick. Its composition are dead cells, usually quite flattened. And now I can refer back to the stratified squamous. The cells are 20 to 30 layers thick. That's stratified. Layered. Squamous, that's flat. Actually, the word squamous means like a scale of a fish. But if you've ever scaled fish, there's nothing I want to do again. Those scales are flat. Okay, so it consists only of dead cells. That's the stratum corneum. And it's our main protection against drying out and our main protection against infection. It contains a chemical called keratin, and this is the chemical that reduces water loss, the waterproofing of the skin. Underneath it, there's a single layer called the stratum lucidum. Normally a single layer, but if your skin gets used a lot, like your fingertips or the ball of your hand, your foot, okay, not the arch of the foot, but the toe and the heel. Or if you work, like in gardening or with hand tools, and you develop a callus, the stratum lucidum is the layer that thickens. So when it thickens to 20, 40 layers, sometimes even more. This stratum lucidum contains a chemical called elidin. Now you notice I have keratin up here, elidin down here. This first layer, the stratum corneum, is closest to sunlight. The elidin is buried in the stratum lucidum, and it's shaded, if I can call it that, by the layer above. When this layer moves in to become this layer, as this layer flakes away, the elidin becomes keratin. Underneath the stratum lucidum is the stratum granulosum. So called because when you look at it under a microscope, the cells seem to be granulated. That's the only reason. This contains hyalokeratin. This layer also contains what's known as keratohyalin. They're the same thing. As this layer moves up, as all layers of the epidermis move upward, and it reaches the next level, the stratum lucidum, the hyalokeratin becomes elidin, and then the elidin will become keratin, constantly being replaced. Underneath the stratum granulosum is a layer of 20 or so cells. These are called the stratum spinosum. We don't have anything special to say about these. They got their name because they look like sort of mines, the type of mine you might see floating in the ocean in a World War II movie with projections coming out of it. The cells seem to have spear-like projection or crystalline projections that poke from one cell into the other and help to hold it together. So far, all of the cells that we're talking about are dead or dying. The last one, the stratum spinosum, has an area of dying cells. They're not multiplying. None of these above are able to multiply. They're there to protect us, but they don't multiply. There is one layer that multiplies. There has to be. If the skin didn't multiply or divide, we'd be skinless in no time. The stratum basale, the lowermost layer of the epidermis, it's the only one. It's only one layer thick usually, and it's the one that can divide and replenish the rest of the cells as they're worn away. Because it divides constantly, it's referred to as the stratum germinativum. Germinativum meaning the source of life. The epidermis that we just mentioned, the 5 layers for, is avascular. What else is avascular? The cartilage we talked about earlier. Avascular and has no blood supply, in other words. If you were to cut yourself and you drew blood, you went past the epidermis into the dermis. The epidermis, when you cut yourself, and you call it a paper cut because it doesn't bleed or anything. It was very, very thin cut. Here's what it looks like. Okay, at the top, this is the stratum corneum. Then a small stratum lucidum. Stratum corneum contains keratin, elidin in the stratum lucidum, hyalokeratin in the next one from here to here, which is the stratum granulosum. And they've done a nice job on the illustration to put the granules inside. The stratum spinosum here was the one most recently formed by the stratum basale. And some of these cells are not yet dead, but they're on their way out. They're not going to divide again. The stratum basale is the bottom one layer. Some books will say 2. That's fine. This is the layer that divides. Underneath the epidermis, which is stratified squamous epithelium, the deeper layer of the skin is the dermis. It's considered to be dense, irregular connective tissue. Now, where are we getting these terms? Stratified squamous, dense, irregular connective tissue. We're getting them from the lab that's going to follow. And like I said, these will be secondhand to you really quick. Okay, I'll go over them more slowly when we have them right in front of us. And when you come back to review this, they will make a lot of sense, I hope. The dermis is vascularized, and it contains at least 2 kinds of glands that we're concerned with: sweat glands and oil glands. Sweat glands are known as sudoriferous glands. But fortunately, despite their long name, their secretion is just called sweat. And we have no problem with that one. The diagram that we're going to show in just a second shows how the sweat winds its way eventually to the surface. Here's the sweat gland here. From here, watch where my needle is, to here. This is the epidermis. So epidermis is really quite small. It encircles the hair shaft or follicle, but otherwise below it, in I believe pink, okay, this area here is all the dermis. Now that's labeled over here for you, epidermis, dermis. This wavy line that the epidermis sets upon is not pointed out in this picture, but we'll be talking about it a lot. It's the basement membrane. Basement membrane. If you took something like a block of wood and you spread shellac over the top of the dermis and then set the epidermis, a block of it on top. So in other words, you sandwiched in the shellac. The shellac would be your basement membrane. Here's the sweat gland, the body of which is located in the dermis. It's a tubular structure, and sweat in liquid form is produced and sent into the lumen of the tubules. As more and more go in, more liquid goes in, more sweat goes in, there's no place for it to go but to follow the tubule to the exit. And so here's the sweat duct. There's also another type of gland here. It's the oil gland. The oil gland is better known as the sebaceous gland. And they secrete not oil, but sebum. It's not a pure fluid. You're going to find that in the sebum, in the oily mass, are also embedded whole cells. These whole cells stop it from being referred to just as oil. You see that the oil gland is connected to a hair follicle. Here's another one over here and another one over here. And so they'll exit here. Of course, if the hair is not there, the process continues anyway.
Are the sebaceous glands always connected to a hair follicle?
There's one type that is not. We're not going to cover that one, however, if that's okay. 99% of them are. Okay, the sudoriferous or sweat gland secretes sweat, which is a fluid. Okay, it has no broken cell pieces or anything like that inside of it. Okay, glands that secrete only fluids are put into a category called merocrine glands. There are, however, three categories of exocrine glands. Exocrine glands are those that do have ducts. If I would look ahead, I'd see I now have to say the same thing again. Exocrine glands have ducts that deliver their secretion to specific locations. And here are the three types. The merocrine gland, which was noted in the previous paragraph. Merocrine glands secrete a fluid only. The best example is the sweat gland and the salivary glands. Holocrine glands, I think of the word whole when I see holocrine. Holocrine glands do secrete fluid, but it contains whole, broken off cells from the lumen of the glandular duct. The best example is the sebaceous gland or oil gland. Look down here. Here's the merocrine gland, and it's secreting fluid only into the center of the duct. The holocrine gland over here, we'll skip the middle one for a second, is breaking off entire cells and replacing them through division. The apocrine gland is this one here, and it has a secretion of fluid, but broken cell tips, not entire cells. So broken pieces of cell, like down here, if you can see it. And the best example is the mammary gland. See, in fact, the only example of importance. The fatty layer below the dermis is the hypodermis. It's not a part of the skin. So epidermis, dermis, and here they're calling it subcutaneous tissue. What's a good description of it? Let's give it a name. This is the hypodermis. The hypodermis is fatty, and it makes a good connector or transition from the dermis to the muscle that is deeper below. When you strip skin off of something and you hear that sound like Scotch tape ripping, it's the hypodermis that is splitting. Okay, because it's what attaches the dermis and the epidermis, or the skin, to the muscle. Okay, like I said, these little standalone lectures don't usually take that long, so finished a few minutes early. Give you 12 minutes if you don't mind at 2 o'clock, and see you back.
Hey, Charlie.
Howdy. Okay. In a, well, it could have already happened. If not, it'll happen this week, that you get a evaluation form or something to fill out for me and this class. Have you gotten it yet?
No.
Not yet.
Okay. Well, I don't care what you do with it, uh, uh, but I'm going to tell you something I'm probably not supposed to. I'm known for that. I mean, after all, I've been here the longest. I like to let people know what it's really like. Okay. You've gotten evaluations in other classes, haven't you? Before?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And what did you have to do with them? Remember? Or was it in the class that you had it?
I think you just sent it back to wherever, like through email.
Yep. That's one way. That's probably the way they would do it this time. It doesn't make any difference. What do you think happens to those evaluations? I don't know how much time you have to put in filling one out, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or a thoughtful half hour, because you're going to write something. The more time you put into it, the more time you waste. Okay, here's what happens to those evaluations. They're collected electronically, put in a folder electronically, and sent to the instructor electronically for the instructor to do with as the instructor pleases. They can delete them, toss them, or if they're curious and really want to, play the game properly, they can read them. But I have the feeling that almost all of them hit the trash can without ever being looked at. There's an exception to that, though. I want to be sure that if you ever tell anybody that they say, "Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about." I know the exception. The exception is people who are full-time instructors, and it's their first 6 years. During that first 6 years, they must read them and comment on them as part of their evaluation. Uh, my evaluation, the one that counts, I guess, comes every 3 years. And they come into my classroom or they come online, and that one, that one works. But the other ones, like I said, whether you do them or don't do them, they're not going to have an effect. Okay. Okay. Any questions? You're probably thinking, well, that's not right. That's the way it is. It's not right. Things aren't always right. And I had a class that had really good evaluations. I wanted the administration to see them. They didn't care. They didn't care. It was a field course. Do you ever take a field course? Biology gives them, horticulture gives them. I used to take them out. We'd go out with 35 students for 3 days, took a number of vans, and I had to hire a driver uh, for one of the vans. And we go to national parks and places. I remember once we were at Joshua Tree, and if you ever do want to consider a fun type class and we can ever get outdoors again, that Joshua trip was pretty good. We meet before the trip. We talk about the code of conduct, and I'm sitting there knowing that there are people that I'm talking to who are going to break that code of conduct. They do it every time. You take 35 people out to the desert and tell them they can't drink, they can't smoke, they can't smoke pot either, and or anything else, and you know that's like a pipe dream. It's not really going to happen. But we went out there, and I did a good class. We learned the plants, we learned the animals, we learned the geology. That Joshua Tree, if you've never been out there, it's great. Uh, Mostly flat, but huge rock piles, huge rock piles. Anyway, that first night, 18 degrees. I told people how to prepare, not how to withstand 18 degrees, but they didn't listen. They didn't bring the right stuff with them, and so I think that went into the evaluation that I didn't prepare them well enough. I prepared them; they just didn't want to hear it. So I also prepared by having a bonfire each of the 2 nights that we were there. Each of the 2 nights it was 18 degrees, and the bonfire, mostly pallets and things like that that we had broken down, and it was uh, uh, so intense, the heat and stuff. We had a ring of people uh, over 20, 25 feet across, and we all enjoyed it and everything. And I'm still looking around for who's going to break the rules. I'm responsible, and so I watch, and I don't see anything yet, but I know something's in the air. And somebody suggested that we go around the ring of people, and each person has to do something, tell a joke, sing a song. They have to do something. I don't like that kind of thing, but we did. And finally, it came around to me. Well, I had brought a banjo, uh, and I played the banjo, and I played a song, and it was loud. It was hard. But when I started playing, about 8 people stood up, and in the darkness of night there, very dark, they went off into the desert with a lantern. Now, I know something's up now. Something is up. They've waited for me to be occupied. So I handed the banjo to the next person, who was Paul Schneider, the driver I hired. Paul also knows how to play the banjo. Now, where do you find 2 people side by side out in the desert? Both can play it. I said, Paul, play a banjo song, play a bunch of them. And they all sound the same. And I went off into the desert uh, trying to find out what these guys were up to, you know. And I couldn't use my flashlight. They used theirs. I walked into cactus in the middle of the night. I couldn't see anything really, just shadows. And I'm catching up with them, but they're going up into the rocks now. They're really climbing up there high. Damn it. Gotta get them. You gotta get them. Or they do something crazy. And I'm down at the bottom of the rocks. They're way up there. I'm trying to climb the rock in the dark. Can't see any handholds, slipping, sliding. They don't hear me anyway. Finally, I got up close enough, and they were up on a ledge, all 8 or so of them. And I said, I can't wait any longer. It's too damn cold. I flicked on my ever ready flashlight, and I go, "You're busted." Okay, and then promptly I slid down the side of the cliff there. Then I got myself back up, all scratched. I got up there, and here were 8 candles lit on the rock. very unusual for Joshua Tree because it's always too windy there, but not this night. And in front of every candle was a Bible. They had gone away from the group to have a Bible study, and I ended up busting into it. Oh God, I felt ashamed. I went back. I went back to the campfire. I could see that in the distance. Now I could use my flashlight. But by the time I got back to the campfire, everybody was drunk on peppermint schnapps brought on the field trip by my driver. So bad judge of character I was that time. Okay.
That's funny. So you thought it was the second group that was going to be trouble.
I didn't even bother because they were too far gone to know what trouble was. I don't think I've ever tried peppermint schnapps, and I don't think I ever will. But I understand it can be pretty potent. Ugh. Okay. Let me think. Okay. I just want to be sure there's nothing I want to say here before we start. Okay, that's where we were. Reduce the size.
Oh, Charlie,
Yes.
are we going to go over what to do and what not to do on the outlines?
Oh, no, I said I'm not going to go over it this time. I want you to do the entire chapter.
Oh, both of them?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, you got 2 weeks, okay? And I really want you to get a head start if you can, so that you don't wait till the last minute. That's why I gave you both of them at once. Okay, here's the histology study guide, and then we'll talk about some histology. And the study guide, it says due by P4. Okay, what date is that? 20. Okay, I've changed that to Wednesday. It's due by 7/21. Okay, if it's
Charlie,
not,
728.
what, did I do that wrong again? Oh yeah, it's not due that. Yeah, I woke up grumpy this morning because next door, they're doing some construction and it is so loud. Sorry about that. Thank you very much for the correction. 7/28, right. Now, when I say that this time, the study guide is due by the 28th, I won't take it on the 29th. Don't even bother sending it. Okay. There's no reason but the 7 days advance, 9 days advance notice you can't do it. And you do need to do it before you get those last tests. It's not hard. Okay, copy this down for yourself. You can download it for yourself. This bit about the tissue preparation of a slide, a microscope slide, that's not important. You're not going to have your hands on microscope slides. You know, for the past year or two, we've not been using slides as much anyway, because so many of these pictures are on the internet. So you don't even need a collection of slides. Okay, here's what you're going to do, please. Okay, here's the name of a tissue or an organ, a slide, a textbook page, and functions or definition. Okay, first one is epithelium. Okay, there are 4 types of tissues. We talked about this ages ago. Epithelial tissue is the first. Okay, well, when we had slides, I didn't direct the class to any one slide, not for the whole tissue group, nor the text page, but I did want a definition. What is the definition of an epithelium? It's tissue that covers or lines. You will find it in your previous notes, or you copied it down because I just said it, or you'll listen to it again. Then simple epithelium, a subcategory. What is simple epithelium? What's its definition? Simple squamous epithelium. Words that I understand, yet you're not familiar with yet. You will be. Simple squamous epithelium. I don't ever want the slide name. It's still on the sheet. Okay. But you don't need to give me any slide names. You should write down the textbook page, though, that you're using. Look it up. Find the photo micrograph, that's the image, of simple squamous epithelium. Underneath it or along with it, it will tell you what it's there for. What is its function? And you write the function out here. Not a definition, but the function. For simple cuboidal, same thing. Give me a textbook page where you found it. And here, the function. One reason for the textbook page isn't because I need it, but if you go back to study it and want to see it again, then you know where it's going to be. Okay, simple columnar, the function of it. Okay, so basically you can see this. I don't want the slide at all. Okay. I want textbook pages, and I want function and definition. Function or definition. It's quite a few, but it really doesn't take that long. Some of them are organs, and we know their functions already. We've lectured on almost all of these, not quite. We didn't do the reproductive system yet, nor the nervous tissue. Okay, I want you to see what it is you're defining or giving a function to. That's why I want the textbook page also. You need to look at it. Those pictures are also in the next link of the module. I'll be sending out a message about that due date. Okay. For today then, tissues, tissue types. Well, we know that there are 4 basic types of tissues, and they're listed again here. We've had them before, so good that some parts of this are repetitive, but other parts are brand new. You're going to find this whole section, these 3 tests, overlap so much. Like I said again and again, it helps because as you study for one, you end up studying for all of them. The epithelial tissue is our first one. This is material that covers our lines. There are a number of types of epithelial tissues, and they're categorized by their shape and their arrangement. Okay, well, we can make a shape. Think of a piece of clay molded into a cube. Okay, that's a shape, a cube. Now, make another one that's a cube, put it on top. Oh, that's a multi-layered cube. That's an arrangement, okay? The basic shapes are cuboid, like a dice. The basic shapes of cells that are epithelial tissue are cuboid or columnar, like a Snickers bar. I don't know if you can think of something better, we'll use it. Or they can be squamous, flat as a pancake. Flat as a pancake. The arrangements are simple meaning there's only a single layer, compound, meaning there's 2 layers, and stratified, many layers. So we now are going to combine the 2 types, shape and arrangements, together and get one tissue. The first tissue is simple cuboid or cuboidal. Okay. It should be composed of 1 layer of cells, and they should be roughly cube shaped. Roughly, not perfectly, but roughly cube shaped. When we do find simple cuboidal, the nucleus is usually dead center. This is stuck to the basement membrane. Epithelial cells do not just float around free. They're anchored. They're stuck. You could almost think that this is a floor. This simple cuboidal can be arranged as a flat sheet, like you see right here. But make it big enough. And this bunch of brownies, if you've ever cooked brownies or seen them cooked, guys, if you take it and roll it up in a tube, take this corner, roll them up in a tube. Then the whole thing is tubular, and the epithelial cells line the lumen, the tunnel that was just formed. Here it is here. This one has been rolled up, in our minds at least. This is a simple cuboidal epithelium. You look at the shapes, they're squarish. The basement membrane, here being called the basal lamina, is right here. It's on the underside. Think of a sheet of stamps, postage stamps, a sheet. Okay. Have the picture side of the stamp up and the sticky side down. It could be the sticky side if you wetted it, but let's don't do that. Now, grab the right and left edges and then bring them up and roll this thing into a tube. Where are the pictures? Inside or outside?
Are
I'm
they
not leaving
inside?
it. Where?
Inside?
Yes, inside. Okay, and they're inside. And what's on the outside? That basement membrane or the sticky layer in this case. Okay. The pictures being on the inside of the tube line the lumen. Here is a tubule probably found in a kidney. We have to be careful in trying to pigeonhole everything. These are simple cuboidal, and yet that one is fine, but this one doesn't look that way. It's got the nucleus off center. Okay. We just have to know also the tissue that we're looking at. Come down a little farther here. This is tissue of the kidney. This is a glomerulus over here. That's the capillaries from which plasma is expressed. And the plasma goes into these tubules. Can't see which one is the entrance point, doesn't matter. These tubules here up close to the glomerulus are the proximal and the distal convoluted tubules. You remember that the nephron goes away, the loop of Henle, and then it comes back. And if we look close here, these definitely look to be simple cuboidal. Here are the tubules magnified. This is cuboidal epithelium, but also since it's only one layer thick, it's simple cuboidal epithelium. Now somebody's going to look at this and say, wait a minute, there's two layers there. That's because this tube is touching this tube. Okay. They're not the same tubes. It's like putting two straws side by side. Okay. They each have a lumen, and they're not sharing their sides. Here's the glomerulus once again. Now, if you remember from just last week, Bowman's capsule surrounds a glomerulus. Here's Bowman's capsule. Bowman's capsule is very thin, very flat. It is not cuboidal. Bowman's capsule is squamous cells. And since it's only one layer, this is simple squamous epithelium. Simple squamous Bowman's capsule. The glomerular space is this clear area here. And you might think, oh, things just shrunk away from it when they're making the slide. Not the case. As the glomerulus expels or expresses the plasma, it's always on its way out. It's always pushing against the Bowman's capsule, pushing back and leaving a clear space. Okay, this is simple columnar. We've looked at simple squamous, that's Bowman's capsule, simple cuboidal, that was the tubules of the kidney. Here is simple columnar. The cells on the outside, these are villi. The cells on the outside are microvilli. They're in a single layer, and they're definitely not cuboidal. They're columnar, simple columnar epithelium. They're facing into the lumen, in this case of the small intestine. How do I know it's the small intestine? Because the villi are only present in the small intestine. However, from the lower half of the esophagus to the rest of the digestive system, the lumen through which food would pass in being digested is completely lined by simple columnar epithelium. So the colon is lined by simple columnar epithelium. Okay. Here's our lamina propria. You recall that? Doesn't hurt to throw some other terms back at you. Just we're not going to be covering compound cuboidal. Compound cuboidal means two layers of cuboid cells forming a duct. We only find that in sweat glands. I'm not going to ask you anything about that. I'm not going to ask you about compound columnar, where we have ducts that have 2 rows of columnar cells. We only find that in the ducts of the salivary glands. Stratified squamous. This sort of looks like the diagram that we had just a moment ago when we did integumentary system. It's labeled on the other side though. The stratum corneum, stratum lucidum. If you total up the number of cells I told you there are in each layer, you get about 20, 40, 41, 40, 51, 61, about 71 layers or so of cells. These are all part of the same epithelium. Therefore, all these layers make stratification. That's why we call it stratified. It's stratified, however. Here's the basement membrane down here. And the cells move upwards, and as they do, they flatten. So we named this because it's stratified, and the final disposition of these cells is to be flat, squamous. Stratified squamous. We don't name it because of any of the other cells underneath, just what they finally become. Transitional epithelium. Transitional epithelium leads you to believe that it can change. It's in transition, and that's true. It's multi-layered. The best example of this, and we need the example right now, is the ureter. We don't have the ureter right here. We have a finger of the inside wall of the ureter poking inward. We notice that there's multiple layers. So this is not simple. That would be one layer. It's not compound because one, we're not doing compound, and two, it's not compound because it's more than 2 layers. Is it stratified? Yes, it's stratified, more than 2 layers, but it's not stratified squamous because these are not flattened out here. Whenever you see stratification, multiple layers, there's only 2 things it can be. Stratified squamous, and that's skin, that's epidermis, or transitional epithelium. This one is transitional epithelium. It's able to change its shape. Think of the ureter with urine going through it, backing up because the bladder is full. The ureter is going to stretch. These can stretch, but they'll regain their shape later on. The oviduct is the same way. Pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. What a name. It's one of my favorites to look at though. This is a single layer of epithelium that it gives the appearance of 2 or more layers under the microscope. Well, what the hell does that mean? It means you think it's 2 layers thick or 3 layers thick, and it's still really only 1. Okay? We need to see it. Okay? Here's the basement membrane down here. The cells are attached here, including their nuclei, and it's ciliated. It has short hairs. What's the function of this type of tissue? Primarily, it helps to move material out of the respiratory system. Pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium is always associated with the respiratory system. You'll find it in the nasal cavity. You'll find it in the trachea. You'll find it lining the larynx as well. You get something down in your trachea or the upper part of your lungs, and it's small enough, these cilia beat and push that stuff all the way back out, and you end up swallowing it instead. No, that's not going to hurt you. Well, why do they call it pseudo stratified? It looks like one layer there, two layers, three, maybe even one more here. This does not look like one layer. It is. Every one of these cells is attached to the basement membrane, but they're leaning in here or bending back. If you imagine, a first grade class or kindergarten class, we had to have our picture taken and a sign, class of 1954 or something like that. And the photographer that the school had hired said, there's too many of us, it's too wide. We need to double up. So we doubled up, smaller kids at the front, and then the taller kids at the back. He said, no, I got to triple up. There's too many kids. So some of us sat on the ground, cross-legged. Others sort of leaned behind them. And then the last group just stood straight up. So we had 3 rows, but they're all attached to the grass. Everybody's standing on the grass. That's the basement membrane for us. So even though to the camera, it looked like 3 different rows of heads, it wasn't, and it isn't here. Okay. The best way to learn these is to remember from the slide and then going to a new slide and another one after that, the similarities, to know what the organ was that it came from. If I know that this came from the respiratory system, I know it's got to be pseudostratified, ciliated columnar. Or I can do it the other way. If I see the cilia, we're only doing one that has true cilia. This short assignment you can skip. It just asks you to look up these epithelial cells. These are all epithelial cell types here that we just talked about. It asks you to put the text page, function, and location. Okay. Putting down the location for yourself might be a smart thing to do. Okay. But you can do this on the study guide that I showed you a link or two ago. The one I'm asking you to turn in on the 28th. Don't worry, I'm just looking for a second. Okay. We went through that pretty fast. I want to get you started with a number of things to look at and show you where to find them. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead, if you don't mind, because I could just look and it's not going to take that long compared to what we usually do. We'll be fine. I'm going to do tomorrow's lecture. Farther I can get us ahead without confusing you. This stuff, take it to heart in looking at these things in the book. Do please get the function, get the definition, maybe read the location for yourself. It's not difficult, but I have seen so many people in the classroom having to do this with a microscope and literally throw up their hands and say, I can't get this. I can't get this. As soon as they do that, it's over. It's over. They'll never get it. They'll never get it. So if you get to that point before you do, calm down, wait till the next day, uh, send me an email or something. Okay. The second type of tissue is connective tissue. The most easily recognized slide is a relar connective tissue. Here it is here. We find this throughout the entire body. It's really the type of tissue that holds everything together. Now, if you look at it, my God, it looks like somebody's thrown wires together and bamboo. You can't depend upon the color of the slide. It can be any color, it can be stained anyway. You just look at the appearance. Nobody ever misses a relar connective tissue. Okay. Find the soft part of your neck. Any part of your neck is probably pretty soft. And it moves and fluxes in various ways if you pinch it just a little bit. Yes, there's connective tissue there, but the looseness is because of the areolar connective tissue. Fat, adipose. This is an easy one to identify because it looks like soap bubbles. Okay. Always white like this. Here we have one surrounding a vein. Okay. The thinness is in a way as a vein, but I think we saw both of these last time. Not the upper one. Okay, adipose stores energy, cushions against trauma, insulates the body. Dense, regular connective tissue. Dense means dense. Okay, so muscle tissue isn't as dense as tendon. Okay, tendon is more dense. You can feel or use one foot to feel the Achilles heel or the Achilles tendon on your other leg at the bottom. This is dense material. It's regular in that it's all going the same way. It does not branch. We have a bunch of little splits here, but those are caused by the microtome knife that cuts these things so thin. Dense, regular connective tissue. The best example for this is the tendon. Dense, irregular connective tissue. Dense, irregular connective tissue is the dermis. The dermis. The dermis is also known as the corium. That was probably in that last lecture, and I didn't point it out, so I am pointing it out now. If I take the trouble to do that, that means it's on the test. The corium, okay, and where's that? Okay, the dermis starts here. This is the basement membrane. The dermis is all this material down here. These are the first four layers of the epidermis. The fifth one, the stratum corneum, is up here. This was stratified squamous. The epidermis is stratified squamous. The dermis, on the other hand, is dense, irregular connective tissue. I'll probably say that 20 times before the test, and I hope no one misses it. Compact bone, you've seen that. Oh, so it's so nice to have a friend pop up. Cancellous bone or spongy bone. Be able to identify one or the other. Hyaline cartilage. Okay. We've seen hyaline cartilage before. It's the most common type of cartilage. It's avascular. We find it in the C rings of the trachea, but not in the epiglottis. That'll be elastic cartilage. We also find it at the ends of the bones in what we call the auricular cartilage and in the costal cartilages. So it's really gets around quite a bit. Here's elastic cartilage. Now this could be in the ear or it's in the epiglottis, either one. This is other supporting tissue. The one we're talking about is this one here. It sort of looks like a stone wall, but in reality, it's more like a cylinder. We can't see the back as it goes away from us. Okay. Or it could be the top of the ear. Okay. There's the top. There's going down the side. This one really isn't that difficult. You sometimes want to think of something that things look like to you. Now, to me, uh, these look like olives with pits in them. If it doesn't look that way to you, fine. See if you can figure out something that does. Fibrocartilage is not going to be on the exam. Okay, now there's a link at the end of this little lecture. Okay, and goes to a chart. Where else can you find this chart? Please do, if you are not using the website, I think you'll find it really an advantage for this portion. I'm down here and I'm going to go to histology slides. Okay. And if you look in the bottom left corner, you might be able to see the chart HTML. So I'm going to the same spot. This is where we just were. You can get there either way. Histology slides. Now, some of these slides are better and some of them are not as good as the ones we've just seen. Anytime you got two slides of the same thing, you can easily judge one to be better than the other. This is simple squamous lining the cheek. These simple squamous cells here lying flat on some surface. It's just a magnification of this over here. We can see it in Bowman's capsule. Simple squamous is the outside of Bowman's capsule. The slide I showed you in the lecture was better because it was so much bigger. But we can enlarge this too. Bowman's capsule. Over here are the tubules within the kidney. And these tubules are lined by simple cuboidal epithelium. If I click on simple cuboidal, the second one down, I'm going to get that one picture again, but I'm going to get another picture where a lot of the tubes are cut obliquely or in cross section. And in that way, they either look like necklaces or bracelets, and they definitely look to be simple cuboid. Simple columnar. Here's another shot of villi, different one. Gets used a lot, however. And the outside cells here are simple columnar. This would be found in the small intestine. Transitional. Okay, a moment ago you saw transitional, but you only saw one finger of it. Now you get to see a ureter cut across. Okay. And this is transitional epithelium here, several layers thick, but the innermost layer, or we could say outermost, but in this case, the lumen's inside. The surface layer is not flattened, not flattened. So it cannot be stratified squamous. It's got to be transitional. And here's a different slide of the pseudo stratified. We see the cilia. That should give it away. You see a couple of places where it looks to be at least 2 cell layers thick. Here, 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 here. But the cilia give it away. Pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. The connective tissue, we saw that a moment ago, but it didn't look that color. Okay, that's the areolar connective tissue. Adipose, here a close-up view of it. It really looks like soap bubbles. Tendon, here you can see it. It doesn't have a lot of splits in it. It almost looks like somebody has taken shellac and painted one stroke on a piece of wood. Densely irregular is for the skin. We're going to use this one a lot. Look at all the oil glands in this person. Why are the oil glands so deep? They're not. This was cut at an oblique angle. Compact bone, cancellous bone. I'm going to assume you've got that down. Here's our picture that we just used of hyaline. Here's hyaline cartilage over here. The similarity between hyaline cartilage and compact bone is that the bone or cartilage forming cells are located in lacuna. They're located in lacuna in both situations. This is also elastic cartilage, but I would vote for asking you it using the other slide that we used. The one that to me did look like olives. Actually, I see that in here too, but that's just me talking. The blood, I know we just did this. Don't forget it, okay? Because one or more of these, I should say, is going to show up on the test. One of these white blood cells. Okay, the rest of the material would be for later. Here we go. Here we go. The link to those histology photos is at the bottom of week 7. Okay, I already put it in there for you. Please take a look at this material if you got the opportunity or need tonight, because tomorrow we're going to start talking about the nervous system. And that's where I'm going to need your attention. I need you to ask me questions when you get lost, and you will get lost. And then when you figure it out, it's fun. It just makes a lot of sense. It's sort of like learning to play an instrument. You know, it's horrible at first for most people. But then when you finally get it and you're good at it, feels great. Okay. Well, we only have 2 weeks to feel great, and we will. And we're ahead now on the material, so we can take more time where it's needed. Okay, now stop this here. Okay, any questions? Randy, what was the matter with your sound?
I'm not sure, but when I closed out the lecture and just came back into it, then it was fine. It was probably like a weak internet connection or something like that, I'm assuming.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you though.
I'm just curious. I don't think we know if the doorbell is gone. We won't know until tomorrow, I guess. I'm gonna look into that. Okay, any questions? No questions. Okay, I'll stick around as always.
I have one question, Charlie,
Sure.
actually. You mentioned 3 extra credit opportunities this week. One is a histology study guide, is attending the lecture. What was the third?
The third one is a histology worksheet. I don't know if I call it that or not. I asked you a bunch of questions. You know what happened once years ago? I had to be at a different function at the school, and I could not be in my class. So I put together a worksheet for them to do that would take the full time I was gone, and they got it done. But it's all sorts of questions. An easy one, for instance, would be name the 4 types of tissues, or another one would be name the 3 types of glands and give an example. Okay, it's just like a written test. Okay, but I'm not going to give it to you till tomorrow or the next day, because I want you to get a start on the other first.
Okay, thank you.
That's worth 4 points. Histology is worth 4 points, and the Zoom is worth a maximum of 7 points. Okay.
Thanks, Charlie.
Okay. So
Thank you, Charlie.
bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye,
Charlie.
Casey.
Thank you.
And Charlie,
Bye.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Charlie. Bye.
so for the study guide, right? That's 4 points extra credit. Is there a model or module that goes into detail about it, or is it all explained in this lecture?
It will all be explained as we go along,
Okay.
but you've got to get it written down, you know, in that form. You know, if you're waiting for me to say it, and then you just quickly copy it down, you're probably not taking advantage of it. It's meant for you to really look up the material, which is my hope. I don't insist on it though. That you look up the material and you write it down, you think about it, and otherwise you're going to end up. I'm sorry, but you'll be sorry. I think on the exam. Okay. This exam, I should tell everybody, so I should wait. This exam, meaning the practicum, is the lowest scoring exam in every class I've ever had. And I've talked to other instructors and they say the same. But it's that we agree also that it's the easiest test. It's absolutely the easiest. So the reason it scores low is some people, like some of you, who have high scores, some people don't try. They don't care. They've got their score, and they got other classes or things to do. Yeah. other people with low scores who take the time to figure out their score here will realize they cannot possibly make an A if that's what they're trying for. And so they relax on it as well. So the fact that it is a low scoring one doesn't mean anything to an individual. Okay. But when people see the results put up on the screen, they wonder why. Well, I want to tell them why, why somebody got a 70 when they're used to getting a 90. Okay.
Charlie, what are we planning to cover in lab tomorrow?
Okay, hang on. Back. There are more tissues that I will do, tissues and organs. I don't feel like doing them yet. I usually wait a little while for that. But I'll probably start the organ systems. Have lots and lots of models of everything from salivary glands to, well, you name it, the whole digestive system, the endocrine system, lots and lots of models. And for those models, people have to identify the parts. That's easy enough. And the function.
Okay, thank you. I just like to print out my the material so that I can take my notes accordingly.
Okay, well then look at the thing and you want organs and systems lab.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, and the handout that comes before it.
Fantastic.
See you later, Charlie. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
See you, Charlie.
Take it easy, Mike.